What happens when two successful entrepreneurs get together for a drink? They talk shop, of course. So grab your favorite cocktail and sit alongside Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso, two seasoned business leaders that have driven their own companies to success, as they share from their experience and dive deep into the secret sauce that can turn a company around. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hi, welcome to the CEO Podcast. I'm Scott DeLong here with my friend Vince Moiso, and we got a special guest, Hazel Ortega. Hazel is a member of EO Orange County. That's how we met and introduced. And she has got a really incredible story that you're going to want to hear. But she's got a book out and it's been a few years now that's been out, from bounce checks to private jets.
Yes, the mastery of miracles.
Pretty cool concept there. So welcome and thank you for being part of us. So today we're going to talk a little bit about obstacles maybe, or not allowing obstacles, or how we overcome those
overcoming challenges.
Overcoming challenges. So initially, when I thought about bringing Hazel on, I thought, great, we need more women in business. We need this. And she just said, women's not my problem. I overcome because that's what I see, right? Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well, and your philosophy on business and on life, where you came from, and all those kind of things. So why don't you talk a little bit about your story, a little background.
Beautiful. Well, first I want to say that there's only 2% women in the world that make over $1 million. Yeah. So that's a miracle there. And what really drives me is empowering women and girls and getting them out of poverty and having them live the life of their dreams.
So not just overcoming the obstacles of being a woman, but out of poverty. Yeah. That's particularly interesting to you.
Yes, it's particularly interesting to me. However, I speak to leaders. And the leaders are the ones that are running companies, and they have employees. Employees go home and they have their families. And so I really feel like, even being here today, that if this story can reach anybody and they can empower the women around in the companies, that'll make the difference and go out through the world.
That's great. So I haven't always been. So I grew up and I haven't always been an advocate, but I'm an advocate for women in business as well. In fact, the forum that Vince is in EO, Ignite, was started by myself and another gentleman because there were not enough women in our organization. It looked like a sausage fest. You come to an EO event and it was a sausage fest. Yep. And we said, no. We need to understand the rest of the world. 51% of the world is female. And if we just think like us, we're missing it, right? So Forum Ignite, which is what we're involved in right now, was started for that purpose.
When we have three women in the forum right now.
Is actually to make other forums jealous that they didn't have women in it, because we know more than they do now. That was our concept. That was our mission.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's true. Even for myself, I never had a group of men that I knew that could have candid conversations and share. And I got to really know men. And I never did that before. I used to just hang out with a bunch of girls as well. And so I also got to benefit from seeing the other side of how men honor women, their families, how they function and how they fail and how they recover. And that's also a lesson for me. And so I'm really glad that I joined EO and that there are men around. And I have a lot of men friends now, where before I thought women and men couldn't be friends. That was just like a big lie I was telling myself. Yeah. And I
think it's a big lie that a lot of people tell themselves.
Totally big lie. My mom told me stuff when I was growing up, and it was to protect me. And now as an adult, it's like, wow.
Yeah, her intentions were good.
Yeah, right? Her intentions were definitely good.
To protect you. And that stopped you from communicating, from meeting, from being part of with 49% of the rest of the world.
Yes. So we have. So even in my book, I write about that, about the lies we tell ourselves, and we even have lies from William Shakespeare that has told us, we're living lies that dead people, invented, and they're not here anymore. But yet we live by these things.
True statement. No doubt. Well, we said so. I want to take us to a point of all of us with our experience in EO, right? And we know that the one of the most powerful things about being in a forum is that experience share, right? Is just sharing your experience with the rest of your forum, and then what they get is what they get out of it. And you said something to me, when we were discussing this particular podcast episode. And you talked about, the only thing that's stopping me from doing what I want to do is my own mind.
Absolutely.
So tell me more about that.
First of all, I want to say, I did, just to give you some context, my business, I started it in my garage. And now it's the #1 counseling center for injured workers here in California. And I ended up starting that business just out of default. Like, it's a good idea and I need to pay bills. And
it's a good reason to start a business.
Don't a lot of businesses start that way? I don't think you'd be the only one.
Yeah, it wasn't like my mom helped me with it. I didn't have any money. That's why I was in the garage. And I just had a bunch of people really kind to me and gave me 2 desks, 2 chairs, 2 phones, and 2 computers. And then we were in business. I was pretty much living like that for a long time and thinking that all I wanted was to have enough to pay my bills, right? And so for a long time, I was earning $4,000 a month. Because the universe just gave me exactly what I said.
That's what you asked for. That's what
$4,000.
That's what you needed. Pay my bills.
Pay my bills.
Yeah.
That was it. And so what I did realize once is that I never had dreams. I never dreamt to take my kids to Disney World in Florida. That would take money, and it would take getting on a plane, which we never travel that way, and then spending a lot of money in Disney World. And so what I realized, and what made the biggest difference for me in my life, is that I one moment I had this realization that I don't dream, and that my goals and aspirations were very realistic. It was based on what I think I could do. And that's pretty dismal, because at that point, my self-esteem, my self-image wasn't where it is today. And so I really even thought I couldn't make a difference in the world. And I honestly, the first time I voted was at 40 years old.
Wow.
Because why would you vote? You don't make a difference anyway. Like, that is just how I grew up. And honestly, growing up poor, like the community, they tell us that the rich people are the reason that we are poor. And then we grow up with this like disdain for rich people, and we think like, you're the reason why everybody is poor. And which is one of those biggest lies, right? Because I've been helped more by people that are doing well than the poor people that can't help me.
That can't help you.
They can't help me. They can't even give me counsel. Right. And so definitely mindset and those limiting beliefs were transformed, and it's why I live the life I have today, which is like full of miracles and a life that's unrecognizable to me and to others that grew up with me.
So I love that the concept of it was not the rich people keeping me down, but learning what the rich people know by talking to them,
getting counsel,
and not thinking they're the enemy. Allowed you to grow and learn and do the things that you needed to do so that you can get out of that I don't know, poverty.
It was poverty, definitely. Yes.
Okay. That's incredible.
It's such a mindset.
That is so
thing.
different than the way that most people in poverty think. Right?
Yeah, and I was in it. I really thought that education was even for somebody else. I didn't graduate high school, right, with all my friends. And when people would give me advice, I would think that's for somebody else and that's not for me. But along the way, I did listen.
Because that's what you were taught? Or?
Well, okay, so part of my story is that I grew up poor and on welfare and on food stamps in this really dangerous neighborhood. By the time I was 12, my best friend was stabbed and killed by a rival gang. Yeah, and then George Bush actually declared the area where I lived and the gang members where I was the enemies to the United States. It was really bad, and those were my next door neighbors. Okay,
Is that the MS-13?
Yes, MS-13. That was the gang,
and you hung out with those people.
I didn't hang out, but that was who I was hiding from. In your neighborhood. Yes, and so they came after the guys that were in my neighborhood. My cousin was killed in a drive-by shooting. My dad was a heroin addict, and he died of heroin related illness.
So what made this click for you? That not to alienate, fear, whatever the word is for the rich people that you were talking about, they embrace them and learn what they know so that you can overcome and actually beat them at their own game, if you will. Right?
I know. I love them.
Yeah.
They're all my best buddies.
What was it that made that click? Where did you learn that?
Well, I was actually working at a law firm as a secretary. I was making $15 an hour, and I thought that was as good as it gets for me. And the attorney asked me to go to college and get an education. And in my mind, I was thinking, like, if I wanted to go to college, I'd be in college. Like, what are you, crazy? I'm not smart enough to be in college. This guy's a fool to be, thinking that I can go to college. But then I became an injured worker. I developed carpal tunnel and cubital tunnel and problems with my neck.
I see connection now.
And because of that, I had permanent nerve damage, and I couldn't do that job anymore. Okay, so everybody out there that's like working from home, you have to make sure that your station is ergonomically correct, because you could also damage your nerves. And I went back to school. And so what I would say is that education is what changed my life. At 30, I got my high school diploma. At 36, I got my master's degree in psychology.
Great.
Yeah. And so this crazy man that told me to go to college and supported me was there every step of the way. He became a pushy angel, is what I call him. Because at first they kind of like bug you and you don't want to do the things.
Why did he pick you?
He was just holding you accountable.
Yeah, but why did he pick you? What was it about you that he saw that for him to push you to do the things that you didn't want to do?
Yeah, well, this guy was pretty special. He was the first Mexican professional that I had ever met. I really thought that attorneys and doctors and they were not Mexican. And so he was Mexican. And so I think because I was Mexican, he kind of took a liking to that. And plus, he really spoke about education to a lot of people.
He understood the power of education. He understood the power of mind. He understood that knowledge was going to get you to the next level.
100%.
And you just didn't understand it yet.
But that power of mind doesn't just come through formal education.
You're absolutely right.
There's more to it than reading a book and applying whatever theoretical lessons there are to do that.
It's knowledge. I mean, however you get it, right? It's knowledge, and it doesn't take a degree to get to that next level. But I just, the point is that he understood that and saw that the trajectory for you. He saw something that you didn't see that was way out here for you. Right?
Yeah. No, and you could just imagine who I was. When he interviewed me for that job, he asked me what gang I was from.
Ooh. How do you affiliate? There you go.
And so, like, who I am today is not who I was that day in that, 20 years ago at that interview. And so you're absolutely right, though, that going to college.
Is he still in your life, by the way?
Yes, he is. Now he's one of my clients.
Oh, yeah.
And I make a lot of money now. And he's like, whoa, I knew you would one day.
I want a discount for that.
He's like, he actually told me I never made as much money in the firm than when you were working with us.
Huh.
Yeah, wow. So I was like, I feel like Latinos were naturally entrepreneurial. Like we're always trying to, make a dollar at a 2 quarters kind of thing, because you have to, right?
Well, hardworking for sure. I mean, I am like, I look at where I came from. I think at walls in the border. I look at all kinds of things, and I think, are you kidding me? These people are trying to feed their kids. They're working their asses off so that they can feed their kids. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want that? So sorry if I get political here, but man, I have a lot of empathy for the people that are willing to break laws, challenge authority to feed their kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then going to school taught me how to do a job, right? So here I am, I'm a psychologist and I'm doing a job. I'm earning $70,000 a year as a job. And
that's better than $18 an hour, right?
yeah, $15. Yeah.
Oh, 15. Okay.
Way better than that. I was double at the time. And that didn't change anything really for my life, in the sense of like my life still didn't work. I was bouncing checks. I was fist fighting with my sisters, and I was already divorced. And I had many other broken relationships. I wasn't getting along with family. I had one sister who didn't talk to me for 5 years. So my life was a hot mess, even though I was a psychologist.
Because you were different than them? Because you wanted more than them? What was the conflict in the family? Where was that?
The conflict was that we grew up fighting all the time.
So that's just normal.
It was
that's
normal.
What normal is.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what occurs for me, is that was just normal.
Yeah.
Totally normal, and I thought life was like that.
And we talked about that before. The challenge is to break that cycle.
Exactly.
How does your family feel about you breaking the cycle? Positive about that?
Well, I think as of yesterday, they actually see that it's real, that I'm actually really a different person than I was 10 years ago, when I used to be mean and I used to be critical and judge them and manipulate them. I'm not that person anymore.
What changed that? What was it?
I went to a personal development seminar.
Okay.
I was dating somebody who told me that I'm not loving. And I thought, well, I'm here, ain't I? That should be enough for you to know what I care, that I care about you. And I had no idea that he expected something different of me until he said that, and I thought something's wrong with me. My mom didn't teach me how to love. And he was like, you need to go to this personal development seminar, and here's the number, and make an appointment. And so I did it to be a better girlfriend. And when I got out of there, I actually became better. I broke up with him and I ended up being a better person to everyone.
A better CEO. This wraps around a lot of the work that I do, and working on the person. Working on the person, and a lot of things that I talk about. So a company hires me to fix people. Like, great.
Yeah.
Let's work on that. Most of the work we do is not on company work. It is on human development. And my commitment to them is that your life is going to improve here and here, both at home and at work, because you want to be a better person in both places.
Yeah.
And it works. And it works. It's powerful.
Absolutely. Investing in your employees is a benefit to the company.
Yeah.
So I have, in my company, I hired someone to come in once a month and give personal development to the staff. I also pay for them to take personal development. They can go to the course that I took, and I fully fund that. And then sometimes some leave because they find out like what's really their calling. And then
we do the same.
That's actually a risk, right?
Yeah.
When people hire me, I tell them one of the risks is that this person may not stay with you because you're not who they want.
Well, she's being nice, and so she's not calling it out. I'm going to go ahead and call it out. So one thing that Hazel and I share is it's landmark is what she's referring to. Okay. So you've heard me talk so much about it, so I'm just calling it out for what it is. And it is completely life changing. I do the same thing with my business as I shared with you. As I absolutely offered it to everybody that wants to take it, and we pay for it. And in fact, I've experienced the same thing where
and that risk is real.
The risk is very real.
Yeah.
People will move on because they realize, this isn't for me. I want something else.
But isn't there a source of pride for you in that to get to people
completely,
even the people that moved on?
No, completely. But
that are fulfilling their dreams.
Well,
too.
no, and I was a part of that. Like I was a part of making that happen. And when you're committed to developing the person, then whatever the result is just the result. Like that's it. And you can move on from that. I want to talk about something, because what resonated with me is something that you said earlier, and you were talking about that trip to Disney World and how foreign it was to even think about, going to Disney World, getting on a plane, and now you understand. So let's fast forward to your life now, because you're doing much bigger things than going to Disney World, right?
Yeah.
But the power of writing it down, understanding the cost of it, speaking it, and now you say, yeah, it's a reality because you know what you need to do to go get it. And if you want it, you just go get it, right? Like,
exactly.
It's really simple.
So back to the power of mind.
Well, I think we create. I think what I hear when I hear the story and all that is like I laugh at all the stories we create in our lives that just prevent us from doing the stuff that we want to do. And it's crazy. So if you want to go to Disney World, just figure out a way to get to Disney World, right? Like, it's not as difficult as you think. It may be foreign when your whole life that's been blocked from you because you've been taught to think that's not attainable. Once your eyes are open to it, once your mind is open to it, you realize actually how simple it really is.
So I see it like this. I see that the people that they want things and they look at their feet and they look at the next step being difficult, the next step being difficult. And what I like to talk about is looking at what is it that you want and then working backwards to go get that.
Easily.
Which is exactly what you're talking about.
Agree.
Is that here's what I want and here are the steps that it's going to take for me to get the things that I want rather than just plodding through life step by step, day by day.
But a lot of people don't know that. So I didn't know that. When I went to the personal development seminar, I was assigned a coach. And this person had that tool. And that person asked me, where are you going to be in 5 years?
Good question.
And I sat there and I couldn't think of anything that would be different in 5 years, except I'll be 5 years older and I'll have
my
more
waist
debt.
will be a little larger. This is me now. My waist will be a little larger, but okay.
Yeah, and you live in fear that the future is not going to be great. I remember thinking by the time I'm 50, I'm going to look like an old lady. And I turn 50 next month. And so, like,
you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. I think I look better than I did at 30 right now. So this lady.
I've seen pictures of you and your daughter together. They look the same to me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yes, my daughter has done a landmark forum as well at 8 years old. Then 10 and 12, 18, and even till this day, she has done it with her boyfriend. So this is like really good work. And then it built, like everything else builds on top of that. So right now I take Joe Dispenza meditation retreats. I do a lot of that work and other work, a lot of EO trainings. I learn and I become a better person, a better boss, all of that. I do want to circle back and tell you that that lady came back and I told her I couldn't think of anything that my life would look like any different in the future. And she said, well, think about it. And she left again. And so I said, shoot, I have to come up with something, right? And one of the concepts that I was taught at Landmark is that whatever's missing in your life is what you're not putting in. Right. So if love isn't present in a conversation, it's because you're not putting it in.
That's right.
Right. So 100% accountability.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you're talking to your kids or, we think we have unconditional love, but we don't. We have conditional love. Right. You're doing the right thing. I love you. You're doing the wrong thing. I'm withholding love. And so I realized that sometimes what's missing is compassion and love, all of this. And so I look for like what is missing that I can put in that makes the difference, right? And so I was like, okay, I have to come up with something. I have to put something in there. And so I said, well, if I believe in God and I believe in miracles, then what is possible for me in my life, right? Because I couldn't rely on myself. My mind couldn't see myself being successful. I couldn't see myself.
So it doesn't matter if it's personal or business. It's the same concept.
Because I did the same thing for my business.
Absolutely.
In my business, I do the same thing. I create a big, hairy, audacious vision. I know you guys call it BHAG, but I call it BHAV.
Okay.
And I create a vision of like, what do I want to happen in my company?
I like that.
And I want 100% of injured workers to go back to school and train, get a new career, and get a new life. Because for me, in my vehicle was education to get out of poverty.
Yeah.
And so I'm using that to help injured workers get a whole new life, turn a new leaf on their life. And when they call me, they're like, I can't go back to school. I have kids. I said, yeah, when I went back to school, I had 3 kids. I know it's hard.
It sounds impossible, but it's not.
Let me give you my excuses.
Right? Yes.
They're reasons for the person delivering them, but to everyone else, they sound like excuses.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
They're sob stories.
Break those things down.
Yes.
We can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the limiting thing is your mind.
Totally is your mind. So I practice mind control. I control my thoughts.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling like, whenever your brain sees you in a different capacity that it hasn't seen you before, it triggers like this fear, right? And then you start to doubt yourself. Well, can I really run a $10 million company? Am I really that person? And so then if you sit in those thoughts, your dream is going to shrink. And so...
Well, and then those become reality, right? So the more and the key is that immediate recognition, understanding those triggers that set that off, and then understanding that you have the tools to get off that, right? It's so nice, just get off it, right? And it's been an amazing journey.
But we also have the tools to get to sink deeper into that.
No doubt.
For instance, you came up in poverty, and you can say, "Oh, poor me," and you can do that. We can settle back into what we grew up.
Well, that's victim mentality, right?
The victim mentality,
right?
And you don't have to.
No.
Well, and so another thing,
you need to make a choice.
You have to make a choice. So another thing I talk about, number one, is vision, right? Create like this, we need to be talking about like we want to be number one in California, the number one in my industry. I want to help 100% of people. But the reason we're not talking that way is because we're very realistic. So let's create a vision for 5-10 years from now of what we want, and then somehow time gets warped, and we end up like 2 years later having that realization that we're living that dream already, right?
Yeah.
So number one, I think it's vision. Number two, when we were just talking about the limiting beliefs and the itty bitty shitty machine that comes up, you're gonna find agreement in your group that you're with. It's very easy for people to be like, "Oh yes, that thing."
We just talked about
just
that.
Play into that.
We just had a podcast on that. You will become the average of the 5 people you hang out with, and they will allow you to come down to their level.
If everybody's agreeing with all your pity party, right? And your victimization, whatever that might be, then you've got to find it.
But there are real struggles as well. So and you have to find a way to overcome those.
No doubt.
Like poverty is a real struggle. Being a female in business is a real struggle.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, pull yourself up with the bootstrap. There are techniques that you have to utilize to get over that. Yeah. And the first one is, which you said earlier, is your mind.
Totally.
You have to believe.
Well, more than that, actually, I think what Hazel's come to realize, what I've come to realize, is that you just embrace being a lifelong learner. I mean, that's the reality. Is just it doesn't stop. You don't go take the landmark forum and then that's it. And magically you're I'm going in the right direction now. No,
they fixed me.
There's more work that has to be done. If you've really gotten anything, you come out of forum and you realize, oh wow, there's a lot more to unpack. There's a lot more that I have to do, and you take the next steps to make sure that you're doing it. And so you start to realize that the journey is your entire life, right? It's not going to end. Even at death, right? Like there's just this lifelong learning. It's just going to happen.
So there's a caveat to that I want to talk about as well. Is that sure? There's a pathway and there's this vision that I want to get, because I'm a big believer in vision as well. But there's a vision, and we are growing, and here's what happens in reality, because we're human. 2 steps forward, and we will take 1 step back. We will default to the things that we've learned for 50 years, for 49 years, sorry. You're not there yet. And we will default to that. But then recognize that and continue to make those 2 steps forward. So keep going forward, and then we're going to make some mistakes. Recognize those, accept them, forgive yourself for them, and move on and to make 2 steps forward again.
Well, let's wrap this up. Okay. And so here's my challenge right now to you is, what are the top 2 or 3, maybe it's only one thing that you could offer to listeners right now that they could implement tomorrow in their lives? Like what is that, top 1 or 2 or 3 things that they could start doing tomorrow that's life-changing?
I have 3 things. Number 1, create a vision for your life that's based on miracles. Okay, and dream big. And when you think you dream bigger. Okay, like how much money do you want to make? Like, do you have your number? And then add a 0 to that. And like that's where you want to be. Wow. Like that's how big you want to dream. Okay,
I love that.
Because if you have a small intention, you take small action. If you have a big intention, you take big action, and then that's what's going to change everything. Number 2 is change your environment, right? So for me, people told me you were a big fish in a small pond, and I said, no, a fish can't grow big in a small pond. You have to change your pond.
Bigger pond.
And so when I started working at the law firm, I was now in a different pond where I was with professional lawyers and judges, and that is my new environment now. And so what I've been doing is upgrading my environment, right? So then and at some point I joined EO, and then now within EO, we have a spiritual group. I have a Latin American group. I have access to people all over the world that make $5, $10, $15 million and billionaires now. So, and that is a new environment for me. And so change your environment, because your friends will, their momentum takes you up with them, right? And then you see how they solve their problems, and they give you ideas, and you learn so much from them. And 3 is celebrate your small wins. You know, I just say like have a big number, right? And maybe you're like, oh, I said I wanted 100,000 a month, and it's not happening, and it's not happening. Hey, but you are making $30,000 a month in your company.
It's better than 4.
So that's something, right? So focus on the positive and celebrate it. And then you start to change your self-image, and you start to see yourself as a winner. So you're always winning the day. Yes, there's failures, but there's always winning in the day. So focus on that. And they're really small things, but practice them, and you will see that your life will change, definitely. And last thing, I know everybody says this, but it's the truth: gratitude. Gratitude.
Be thankful, be graceful.
Yeah. So celebrating your wins is like having a gratitude practice, which is really, really important.
So, okay, dream bigger, change your environment, celebrate the small wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
And practice gratitude.
And practice gratitude. I agree. All right. So you heard it here on the CEO podcast. You can check us out on YouTube, obviously on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other channels. Right now, we're recording live here at Famosa The Surface Studio at Soco Design Center in Costa Mesa, California.
And we're being sponsored by
Lead to Goals. Thank you.
Left Coast
Brewery. Thank you very much.
So,
we're drinking Trestle's IPA right now.
Which
thank
mine's
you, Left
almost
Coast.
gone. So
Mine's almost gone. Goes down way too easy. So we appreciate the hospitality, and we appreciate obviously the support and sponsorship. As always, we want feedback. So please check out theceopodcast.net. And if you have any questions for us, if you have any questions for Hazel, I'm sure we can put you in touch. And we'd love your feedback just on podcasts, and certainly any topics for discussion. Hazel, thanks so much for coming on with us. And until next time,
cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. To learn more about Scott and Vince, please visit theceopodcast.net and check out the calendar to tune in for our next episode. While on the site, you can also listen to past episodes, access additional content created for our listeners, and if you would like to dive deeper into any topic, there is an option to schedule some time with Scott or Vince. Thanks for listening.